Okay, last week we reached the inferior, one of the entrancing muscles, thorax. And I think that the last muscle that which is explained was levator costarum, as you see in this picture, levator costarum. Levator costarum brevia, levator costarum longa. All right, and now serratus posterior superior. This muscle arises from spinous process of the C7 and the first two or three thoracic vertebrae. I mean that the T7, T1, T2, and T3 from the spinous process and the inferior part of ligamentum nuca. Anyway, the muscular fibers goes antero-inferiorly direction. You can see antero-inferior direction and attaches to the lateral face of the ribs 2 to 5, 2, 3, 4, and 5. This muscle, after contraction of this muscle, check everything goes well. It's okay. Somebody tell me. All right. And this arises from T12, sometimes T11, 12, and 2 or 3 vertebrae. I mean that the T12, L1, L2, and L3. The fibers goes suprolaterally, and attaches to the ribs 8 to 12. Okay, 8 to 12. The most of the time, all right? But in this picture, you can see attaches to the 9 to 12. 9, 10, 11, and 12 of the time are innervated. All right. This muscle is the depressor of the ribs. This muscle is depressor of the ribs. All right. And the next very important muscle of the respiration is the diaphragm. Diaphragm is actually is the muscular tendinous tissue between thorax, you can see it is between thorax and abdomen. Okay, this is the muscular. Partition, thoraco-abdominal, because this muscle is between thorax and abdomen, as you see. The diaphragm has a two right thumb, left thumb of lever, right thumb, okay, you can see top of the thumb is the higher because of right lobe of location of the, because right lobe of the here, okay. Diaphragm on the basis of its at the origin has a costal part. Costal part arises from the internal surface of the lower six ribs, and the lumbar part, lumbar part, pars lumbaris, pars costalis, right? Okay, pars costalis, you can see. The costal attachment of the diaphragm. We name pars costalis, yeah, or costal part. And because of lumbar attachment, we use pars lumbalis or lumbar part. Okay. Anyway. On the contrary, diaphragm has a central tendon. But for example, if you consider anterior, you can see the tendon of this is here. Muscular fiber is between two fibers end. Okay, muscular fiber central. But in the diaphragm, tendon is the central. Central tendon of the diaphragm looks like a clover shape, like a clover leaflet. I mean that. This is the central tendon of the diaphragm. Okay, central tendon of the clover-like, like a clover leaflet. Consists of the terry parts. Right leaflet, left leaflet, and anterior leaflet. And in the last picture, you see here the pericardium, basal part of the pericardium attaches firmly to the anterior leaflet. Tendon of diaphragm, central tendon of the diaphragm, here, attaches here. Now you see pericardial sac, fibrous pericardium, but the directly anterior leaflet of central tendon. Therefore, tendon of the diaphragm is clover. See muscular fibers attachment to center. In the diaphragm, instead of use part lumbar, costal, and sternum attachment of the diaphragm. this opening consists of the theory for inferior vena cava, foramen for esophagus, and foramen for aortic. Okay, thoracic aorta to this foramen and is converted to the abdominal aorta. And please keep in mind, thoracic aorta and abdominal aorta all together, both of them consider as descending aorta. I mean that descending aorta, thoracic part and abdominal part, orifice or hypophyte. In this picture, you can see aortic orifice, foramen for inferior vena cava, and the foramen or hiatus for esophagus. You can see. Of course, we've got another gap between muscle attachment of the diaphragm. For example, here between costal and external attachment of the diaphragm, you've got a gap. We say Larry's cleft. Larry's cleft. Sometimes herniation from the abdomen into the thorax, you've got from this gap on each side. Okay, in another picture I show you, is the better. This triangular gap is the Larry's cleft or Morgani foramen. Another name for this is the Morgani. External attachment, costal attachment. Okay, this one. Larry's cleft or Morgani cleft between external and the costal attachment. Another gap is between here, lumbocostal triangle is between costal attachment and the lumbar attachment. Lumbocostal trigon or buctalic triangle on each side. Sometimes we've got a herniation from here. Herniation, a loop of the intestine is herniated into the thorax. And another gap is designated for passing through sympathetic trunk and the some splanchnic nerves arises from sympathetic trunk. For example, here you can see the gap for passing through greater, lesser, and the least splanchnic nerve arise from the thoracic sympathetic trunk for reaching to the, for getting to the plexus in the abdomen, solear plexus, renal plexus, aortic-renal plexus. Okay, the splanchnic nerve pass through cruise of the diaphragm by this gap. Okay, all right. Anyway, and you can see it. And this is the lateral view of the diaphragm. You can see lateral view of the diaphragm, and the three major openings and the level of this opening is very important in the CT scan and MRI pictures. Yeah, you must keep in mind the level of this foramen. Okay, inferior vena cava is the same level with the T8, eighth thoracic vertebra. And the esophagus, same level with T10, and the aortic orifice, same level with T12, okay, T12. This is incorrect, it's not T8, T12. This picture is incorrect, okay? Please consider This is T12, not T8. T8 is here. Oh, all right. Okay. This is the original book. Oh, unfortunately. All right. Is the T same level with T 12? If you come back to the previous session and remember, external angle is the important level. External angle is the important level. If you remember, external angle is the same level with the T45 intervertebral disc between T4 and T5. Okay, commencement and the end of the arc of aorta is this plane, is this level. I mean that external angle, and the commencement of descending aorta is on this plane or level. I mean that commencement of descending aorta starts at the level of the T45 or external angle, and the level of the T12 descending aorta passes through diaphragm and enters into the abdomen, and at the level of the L4, fourth lumbar vertebra, descending aorta is ended by bifurcation into the common iliac, right and left. Okay, if you consider all together, and you can understand better. Okay, all right. Please correct this. This is the T12, and this is the level of each foramen or hiatus in diaphragm. Okay, T8, level T8, T10, and T12. All right. And now we see attachment of the diaphragm. As I told you before, diaphragm arises from the sternal part of the diaphragm, arises from the posterior surface of the xiphoid process. This is the xiphoid process, posterior surface xiphoid process. A costal attachment arises from internal surface of the lower six ribs. And as you see in this picture, the muscular slips are interdigitated with muscular slips of the transverse muscle. This is the transverse muscle, and you can see interdigitation of this muscle with the distal attachment of the diaphragm. You see, all right. And this is the anterior wall of the thorax, and this is the lateral side, and we reach in this picture to the attachment of the posterior attachment of the diaphragm. And posterior attachment consists of the remaining costal attachment here, and with a gap between them, we reach to the lumbar attachment. From here to there is a lumbar attachment of the diaphragm on each side. Okay, and what is the characteristics or features of the lumbar attachment? You can see lumbar attachment consists of the two tendinous arc and a cruise on each side. This tendinous or fibrous attachment is lateral arcuate ligament on the quadratus lumbaris muscle, medial arcuate ligament on the psoas major muscle, psoas major this muscle, and the crus on the lumbar vertebrae, lumbar vertebrae. Between two, we've got a median arcuate ligament or median arcuate tendinous arm, medial, and the median. Okay, median, medial, and lateral. All right. From lower, another picture. Show you, and here we can see. For diaphragm. In this picture. Okay. It was better. Okay. From tip and lower border of the rib 12. Okay. This tendinous arc starts. Lateral arcuate ligament starts from tip and lower border of the 12's rib starts and with process of the elbow. Okay, point and the end point for lateral arcuate ligament. From transverse process of the L1. And instead right crus. For left crus attaches to the anterior surface of the body L1. Crus is longer than left one. This is the lumbar attachment of the diaphragm. As you see in aorta and another things or another features, right muscular fiber of the right crus encircle esophagus and they come back again and they come back to the is formed by right crus of the diaphragm. All right, and sometimes we've got some muscular fibers attaches to the adventitia of the esophagus. We use this term for muscular fibers, suspensory. All right. It was lumbar part of diaphragm or lumbalis in the Latin term, pars lumbalis or lumbar part of the diaphragm from here to there. Okay? Diaphragm, surface of the diaphragm, superior surface of the diaphragm, you can see. Diaphragm is innervated by the phrenic nerve, mainly by phrenic nerve. I mean that phrenic nerve, which arises from cervical segment 3 and 5. Diaphragm provides efferent fiber and afferent fiber for central part of the diaphragm. And the periphery of the diaphragm, this part, which attached to the lower ribs, is innervated by the intercostal nerve. Usually, intercostal nerves provide afferent fiber, as you see in this picture, for periphery of the diaphragm. But in some books you can see intercostal nerve provides a few motor fibers for periphery of the diaphragm as well. But diaphragm is mainly innervated by the phrenic for motor control. Okay, red fiber in this picture. Okay, it's the efferent or motor fiber. Okay, therefore, so the phrenic nerve is very important because after damage to the phrenic nerve on each side or both sides, you've got a paralysis of the diaphragm, and the respiration will be faced to the difficulties. Okay, in this picture you can see distribution of the left and the right phrenic nerve. You can see on the superior surface of the diaphragm. Diaphragm receives arterial supply by this artery, this branches from the internal thoracic artery. This is the internal thoracic artery on each side. Internal thoracic artery gives off pericardiosphrenic artery. Travels along with the phrenic nerve and reaches to the diaphragm. Finally, pericardium. This artery supplies pericardium and the phrenico. Pericardio, phrenic, and phrenic means diaphragm, and supplies the diaphragm. Another branch of the internal thoracic artery which supplies the diaphragm is musculophrenic. This artery. Okay, you can see musculophrenic supplies the diaphragm and penetrates the diaphragm. You can see here, penetrates diaphragm for constituting anastomosis with the inferior phrenic artery. This is the inferior phrenic artery. Arises from the abdominal aorta for supplying inferior surface of the diaphragm on each side. And the terminal part of the musculophrenic artery comes here for constituting the inferior phrenic diaphragm, as you see in this picture. Alright. And you can see the phrenic nerve on left side and the right side penetrates the diaphragm for innervating these important respiratory muscles. Alright, I think that okay, you can see here, inferior phrenic artery arises from the abdominal. This is the aortic hiatus and the aortic orifice of the diaphragm, as you see in this picture. Alright, and another things about the cardiovascular system, anatomy of cardiovascular system, is the thoracic sympathetic trunk and thoracic sympathetic trunk and the relevant nerves arise from this part of the sympathetic trunk. This is the autonomic system, nervous system, the general schematic picture of the autonomic nervous system. Autonomic nervous system, the mainly consists of sympathetic and parasympathetic and trig plexus, 3 parts. Trig plexus, and this is the lateral horn of gray substance. Okay. Posterior or dorsal horn and ventral horn. At the level of the thorax and the superior lumbar region, L1, L2, L3, you've got a lateral horn. This is the origin for sympathetic. This is the center for sympathetic fiber. Sympathetic fiber, by traveling through via and horn, enters into the ventral root of each spinal. The spinal nerve is formed by 2 roots, dorsal root, ventral root. Things about sympathetic in the superior adjacent to the okay, to the anterolateral in a spinal trunk as the end up is the finished as ganglion, the impar ganglion on the anterior surface of the coccyx here. This, and you can see anterolateral to the lumbar travels and anterior surface of the sacrum, and finally in the midpoint on the anterior surface of the coccyx is finished as impar ganglion. Impar ganglion. But in the upper part, you can see we've got a paired ganglion. We have a ganglia on each side, okay? But the full median ganglion part, and the sympathetic chain or sympathetic drawn is finished finally here, and thorax cell and pretty close to the floor of the cranium finished as superior sympathetic cervical ganglion. As you see in this picture, okay, as by this ganglion will be forward. Of course, the sympathetic system will be the cranial part. Cranial part from the cervical region, some fibers around internal carotid artery enters to the cranium, but the origin of these fibers actually from the thorax. Superior cervical ganglion gives off the lumbar sacral sympathetic chain. Okay, the medial is nearer to the median in comparison with the lateral. Lateral away from median. Okay, this is the differences between them. All right, and if you have a question, I'm here. All right. Okay, and that we reach to the two movement of the thorax and before entering to the pericardium and the heart. In the okay, after knowing about the muscles of the thorax, I would like to talk about these particular movements of the thorax. In the thorax, we've got two important movements is needed for respiration. This is the movement of the ribs, sternum, and the costal cartilages. The first, the bucket handle movement. By lateral elevation of the ribs, you've got a bucket handle movement. Like a bucket, handle of the bucket, you have similar movement in the thorax. By bucket handle, you've got an increasing in the transverse diameter of the thorax. Thorax transferally is expanded by this movement. bucket handle transversely is expanded because of this. Because from the posterior to anterior part of the thorax, the ribs has a slope. Ribs has a slope, and by elevation, you've got this increasing diameter. Another movement is related to the movement of the rib, and after that, elevation of the sternum. Okay, you can see the sternum is elevated antero-superiorly. Okay, movement to anterior and the superior, and because of this, antero-posterior diameter is increased, and this movement is the palm handle movement, like a palm handle. Okay, if for imagination of the increasing in the antero-posterior diameter, you can consider the handle of the pump. Diameter is this amount. Okay, this amount. After pump handle movement of the thorax, diameter is this amount. Is the larger than this. Okay, if you consider. Okay, all right. Before movement is this. After movement is this. Okay, because of this, because of elevation of the rib and elevation of the sternum, you've got a palm handle movement in the thorax, and by combination of the two movements, you've got a large amount of expansion of the thorax. Okay, and the diaphragm is depressed. By contraction of the diaphragm is depressed, and the vertical diameter of the thorax will be increased by contraction of the diaphragm. In total, you've got a very large expansion of the thorax, and the air is inspired because of this combination movement. Okay, at this point I have finished up this session, and if you have a question, I'm here. All right. And the next time I will talk about pericardium, mediastinum, pericardium, and the heart. If you we have enough time. But the mediastinum, and after that I will talk about the pericardium and the relevant subjects. If all right, if no questions, I say goodbye to you all. No question? All right. Have a beautiful day, and take care of yourself and the family.